All right, so here we are again. It's that familiar Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month.
Patch Tuesday.
Exactly. And, you know, for anyone managing IT infrastructure, that name alone, it kicks off a whole process in your head, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That immediate shift, right, from the day-to-day stuff straight into critical assessment mode.
Yeah.
It's the routine we all know.
It is. And you've got this wave of updates coming in, and you need to figure out, okay, what's urgent? What needs deploying now?
Yeah, the volume can be pretty daunting sometimes, and getting that prioritization right, that's key to keeping things secure. Precision is everything.
Totally agree. And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. Our goal here for you listening is really to cut through the noise. We want to pull out the most critical bits from the latest PortalFuse Weekly Security Report. This one's for August 12th, 2025. Today's Patch Tuesday.
Right, we want to give you that shortcut, get you fully informed without you having to wade through absolutely everything yourself. Save you some time, hopefully.
Exactly. No information overload, just the essentials.
So the report we're working from, just for context, it's the PortalFuse Weekly Security Update Report, the Windows and Edge edition. It's a fantastic resource, really.
It is.
It pulls together all the vital stuff from, the official Microsoft Security Response Center posts,
Yeah.
the MSRC,
Yeah.
and also from Microsoft support docs.
Puts it all in one place.
Yeah. Makes it much easier to find those key KB articles, the update packages you need. It really is designed for system admins, for security pros, to keep you up to speed without drowning in different sources.
Okay, so let's hit the headline number right out of the gate. For this reporting period, August 6th to August 12th, we're looking at a total of 60 new CVEs.
60, wow.
Yeah, 60. That's a significant number for 1 week. It definitely tells us we need to pay close attention this month, really plan out our patching strategy carefully.
It's a solid batch, no doubt. And as we get into the details, you'll see a clear theme emerging. The vast majority, they're Windows-based vulnerabilities.
Right, covering a few really critical categories.
And the severity levels. Well, some of these are quite serious. We really need to understand the implications.
Okay, let's dive in then. We have to start with the ones that always demand the most immediate attention, right? Remote code execution vulnerabilities. RCEs.
Always top of the list.
Yeah.
Highest priority, no question.
So just to be absolutely clear, when we talk about RCE, remote code execution, what exactly are we dealing with?
We're talking about flaws that let an attacker run their own code on your system, remotely, from across the network, potentially.
Without needing physical access.
Exactly. And the impact. It's usually catastrophic. We're often talking full system compromise. If they can run their code, they basically own the machine.
Which means they can do anything. Steal data, install more malware.
Use it as a launch pad to attack other systems on your network. It's the foothold they need. So yeah, patching RCEs promptly, it's not just recommended, it's absolutely non-negotiable. Imperative.
Got it. Okay, so let's look at some specifics for this month. There seems to be a cluster around Microsoft Message Queuing, MSMQ. First up, CVE 2025-53145.
Right. This one's labeled as a type confusion vulnerability in MSMQ.
Type confusion. Can you unpack that a bit? What does that mean in practice?
Sure. Type confusion happens when a program tries to use a piece of memory or a resource as one type of data, but it's actually a different incompatible type. Think of it like trying to read a number as if it were text or vice versa.
Okay, so it misinterprets the data.
Exactly. And that misinterpretation can cause all sorts of problems, unpredictable behavior, memory corruption, and crucially, it can create an opening for an attacker. They can sometimes manipulate this confusion to trick the system into executing their code.
So for this CVE 2025-53145, how does that play out?
In this case, it allows an authorized attacker, so they need some initial credentials or access to execute arbitrary code over the network. They do this by sending specially crafted messages to the MSMQ service. The root cause is MSMQ not handling these resource types correctly.
And the potential impact?
Unauthorized access, potentially full control of systems running MSMQ. Pretty serious.
Okay. And sticking with MSMQ, there's another one that looks similar. CVE 2025-53143.
Yeah, another type confusion vulnerability, also in Windows message queuing. Very similar mechanism to the last one.
So again, an authorized attacker sending crafted messages.
Correct. Over the network, potentially leading to arbitrary code execution and system control. Again, the core issue is that improper handling of resource types within MSMQ.
So for both of these MSMQ RCEs, the advice is pretty straightforward.
Get the security updates applied as soon as possible, definitely. And I'd also say take a look at the official update documentation from Microsoft. Sometimes there are specific configuration changes or extra steps recommended, especially if your MSMQ servers are, exposed externally.
Good point. Always check the details. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. CVE 2025-53131. This one affects Windows Media.
Right, and this one's different. It's a heap-based buffer overflow.
Buffer overflow. Classic vulnerability type. Can you give us the quick rundown on heap-based ones?
Sure. The heap is a region of memory applications used for dynamic data storage. A heap-based buffer overflow happens when a program writes more data into a specific memory chunk on the heap than that chunk was designed to hold.
So the data spills over.
Exactly. It overflows into adjacent memory areas, and that overflow can overwrite important program data, maybe control structures, or, crucially, it could overwrite memory with the attacker's own malicious code.
And for this specific Windows Media vulnerability?
What's really concerning here is that it could allow an unauthorized attacker notice, unauthorized this time.
Prior access needed.
Right. They could potentially execute arbitrary code over the network just by getting a user to open or process a specially crafted media file. The root cause is a flaw in how Windows Media handles its memory allocations.
And that code runs as the user who opened the file?
Typically, yes, in the context of the current user.
Yeah.
But that's often enough to cause significant damage or gain further access. The unauthorized attacker part really ramps up the urgency on this one. Patching immediately is, well, paramount.
Absolutely. That lack of authentication requirement changes the game. Okay, back to MSMQ for CVE 2025-50177. What type is this one?
This one's a use after free vulnerability, another memory corruption classic.
Use after free. Explain that one.
Okay, so imagine a program allocates a chunk of memory, uses it, and then tells the system it's finished with it. It frees the memory. But due to a flaw, the program later tries to use that same memory chunk again after it's been freed.
But the system might have already given that memory to something else.
Precisely. Or an attacker might have found a way to influence what gets put into that freed memory space. So when the original program tries to use it again, it might be accessing garbage data, crashing, or worse. It might be accessing and executing malicious code planted there by the attacker.
Right. So how does that apply to CVE 2025-50177 in MSMQ?
It allows unauthorized attackers, again unauthorized, to execute arbitrary code over the network. They do this by sending specially crafted messages to the MSMQ service, triggering this use after free condition. The underlying cause is that flaw in memory handling, leading to corruption.
So same advice as the other MSMQ issues.
Pretty much. Prompt application of the security update for any system running MSMQ is essential to shut this down.
Okay, moving on to graphics components. CVE 2025-50176. This affects the DirectX graphics kernel.
Yeah, and this one's back to type confusion, like those first MSMQ ones.
Okay, so misinterpreting data types again. What's the impact here?
It allows an authorized attacker to execute arbitrary code locally. So they need to be on the machine already.
Local execution, but still serious, right?
Very, especially because vulnerabilities like this are often used as part of an attack chain. An attacker might gain initial low-privileged access through some other means, maybe phishing, and then use this DirectX vulnerability to elevate their privileges.
So it's a stepping stone to gaining admin rights, potentially.
Exactly. It could help them get higher privileges, maybe system-level access, giving them much more control. That potential for privilege escalation makes patching this one really important, even though it's local.
Got it. That makes sense. What's next? CVE 2025-50169. This one's in Windows SMB.
Right. Server message block. This is a race condition vulnerability.
Race condition. That sounds like a timing issue.
It is. A race condition occurs when you have multiple processes or threads trying to access and change the same shared resource, like a file or a memory location, at the same time. The final result depends on the exact, unpredictable order in which they access it.
So it's a competition and the outcome is uncertain.
Exactly. And if the system doesn't properly coordinate or synchronize that access, an attacker who can influence the timing just right might be able to cause an unexpected insecure state.
And in the case of this SMB vulnerability,
it allows unauthorized attackers to execute code over the network because of improper synchronization when accessing shared SMB resources.
Unauthorized code execution over the network via SMB, that sounds bad.
It is. It could lead to unauthorized data access, maybe data modification, or even full system compromise. Given how widespread SMB is and how often it's exposed, patching this immediately is crucial, especially for any internet-facing SMB services, which hopefully you don't have, but...
Yeah, hopefully not. Okay, continuing with graphics, CVE 2025-50165. This affects the Microsoft graphics component.
This one's an untrusted pointer dereference.
Okay, pointer dereference. What's happening there?
So a pointer in programming is basically a variable that holds a memory address. Dereferencing the pointer means accessing the data at that memory address. An untrusted pointer dereference happens when the program tries to use a pointer whose value, the memory address it holds, hasn't been properly checked or validated.
So it might be pointing somewhere invalid or dangerous.
Exactly. It could point to memory the program isn't supposed to access, or maybe memory an attacker controls. This can lead to crashes, reading sensitive information, or in this case, executing arbitrary code.
And CVE 2025-50165 allows this how?
It allows an unauthorized attacker to execute arbitrary code over the network by exploiting this pointer issue. The potential outcomes are serious data breaches, system compromise. This one definitely needs the official fix applied promptly.
Makes sense. And there's another graphics one here too, CVE 2025-53766 and GDI plus LI.
Right. GDI Plus is the graphics device interface. This one is another heap-based buffer overflow, similar to the Windows Media one we discussed.
So writing too much data to a memory buffer on the heap.
Correct. And again, it allows an unauthorized attacker to execute arbitrary code over the network. They do this by sending specially crafted content, maybe an image file, maybe something else. GDI Plus processes designed to trigger that overflow.
Unauthorized again, that's always a red flag.
Always. It means lower barrier to entry for the attacker. Immediate updates are really needed here to mitigate that risk of system compromise.
Okay, let's look at the desktop Windows Manager, DWM, CVE 2025-53152.
This one is a use after free vulnerability, like CVE 2025-50177 we talked about earlier.
Okay, using memory after it's been released. How does it impact DWM?
It allows an authorized attacker, so they need local access first to execute code locally.
Local again, but still a problem if they're already inside.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If an attacker has phished a user or exploited something else to get onto a machine, this gives them another tool to potentially run more code, maybe escalate privileges, establish persistence. It's another foothold. So prompt patching is needed to block that local code execution path.
Right, and look, another MSMQ one, CVE 2025-53144.
Yep, they're certainly getting attention this month. This is another type, confusion vulnerability in MSMQ.
Seems to be a recurring theme there. Authorized or unauthorized?
Authorized attacker allows arbitrary code execution over the network. This specific variant is noted as being due to improper handling of resource access.
So slightly different angle, but same outcome and same general cause.
Pretty much. Improper handling within MSMQ leads to a way for an authorized attacker to run code remotely. And the fix is the same. Apply the latest security updates for MSMQ to protect against this exploitation.
Okay, last one in this RCE category, and it looks significant. CVE 2025-48807 in Windows Hyper-V.
Yeah, anything impacting Hyper-V is immediately a major concern for anyone running virtualized environments.
What's the issue here?
It's described as an improper restriction of communication channels. Essentially, Hyper-V isn't locking down the communication paths between components as tightly as it should.
And the consequence?
It allows an authorized attacker to execute code locally within the virtualized context. This could mean code execution on the guest VM, or potentially worse.
Worse how? Like escaping the VM?
That's the nightmare scenario, yes. A VM escape, where an attacker breaks out of the guest machine and gains access to or control over the underlying host operating system. This vulnerability could potentially enable unauthorized access to sensitive operations or be a step towards such an escape.
Wow. Okay, that's critical for anyone using Hyper-V.
Absolutely critical. The remediation here isn't just patching. Yes, apply the update immediately. But also, you really need to go back and review your Hyper-V configurations. Make sure you're following all the security best practices for isolating VMs, securing network traffic between them, hardening the host. This vulnerability highlights why those practices are so important.
A stark reminder. Okay, that's a lot of RCEs, each one pretty serious in its own right.
Definitely a heavy month for RCE. Requires immediate focus.
Right. So moving on from the immediate code execution from anywhere threats, let's tackle the next big category, elevation of privilege, or EOP vulnerabilities.
These are equally critical, just in a different way.
Explain that. Why are they so critical if they usually require initial access?
Because they're the key to escalating an attack. An attacker might get initial access as a standard user, maybe through phishing, maybe exploiting a simpler bug, but that standard user account often doesn't have permission to do the really damaging stuff.
Like accessing sensitive system files, installing persistent malware, changing security settings.
Exactly. EOP vulnerabilities are the tools an attacker uses to jump from that low-privilege foothold to having administrator or system-level control. They elevate their privileges. So while RCE might get them in the door, EOP lets them own the house.
That makes sense. They're often used together in attack chains.
Very often. You might see an RCE used for initial access, followed immediately by an EOP exploit to gain full control. Blocking EOPs is crucial for containing breaches and preventing attackers from achieving their ultimate objectives.
Okay, and it looks like we have a ton of these this month. Where do we start?
Let's start right at the core. CVE 2025-53151. This is a use-after-free vulnerability, but this time it's in the Windows kernel itself.
Whoa, a memory flaw in the kernel. That sounds bad.
It is. The kernel is the heart of the operating system. A vulnerability here, like this use-after-free, allows an authorized attacker who's already logged in locally to elevate their privileges. Exploiting this could lead to unauthorized control over fundamental system resources. It's a direct path to higher power.
And the cause is that memory management flaw within the kernel code.
Precisely. For this, and honestly for pretty much all the EOPs we're about to discuss, applying the security update is the primary essential defense. Patching the kernel is always high priority.
Understood. Okay, what's next? CVE 2025-53149.
This one's a heap-based buffer overflow again, memory corruption. But this time it's in the kernel streaming WOW thunk service driver.
Okay, specific driver issue. Impact.
Similar outcome. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally, potentially enabling them to run arbitrary code with those elevated privileges. The flaw is in how this driver handles memory buffers. Again, imperative that all affected systems get the update for this driver deployed quickly.
Right. Now, you mentioned the Windows Ancillary function driver for Winsock earlier. Looks like it's back with a vengeance in the EOP category.
It certainly is. We have a whole cluster here. Let's see. CVE 2025-53147, CVE 2025-53137, and CVE 2025-53718. All three of these are use-after-free vulnerabilities in that Winsock driver.
3 separate use-after-free flaws in the same driver component this month.
It seems so. Each one allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally, exploiting different memory management flaws within the driver. The risk is unauthorized access to sensitive data or potentially full system control if they gain enough privilege.
And the fix is the same for all 3.
Apply the latest security updates. Make sure the Winsock driver gets patched. It's clearly a component needing attention.
Clearly. And the Winsock issues don't stop there, do they? I see CVE 2025-53141 and CVE 2025-53154.
Right. These two are null pointer dereference vulnerabilities, also in the Windows Ancillary function driver for Winsock.
Null pointer dereference. Remind us what that entails.
It's when the program tries to use a pointer, that variable holding a memory address, but the pointer's value is null, meaning it's not pointing anywhere valid. It's like trying to follow directions to an address that doesn't exist.
Usually causes a crash.
Often, yes. But sometimes, a skilled attacker can trigger this condition in a very specific way, manipulating the crash or the state afterwards to gain control, or in this case, elevate privileges.
So these 2 Winsock null pointer bugs allow local privilege elevation.
Correct. Authorized attacker, local access, elevates privileges, gives them higher level system access, posing a significant risk for unauthorized actions. Patching that driver is critical.
Okay, moving away from Winsock for a moment. CVE 2025-53142. This is in the Microsoft brokering file system.
Another use-after-free vulnerability. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. Again, exploiting improper memory management, this time within that specific file system component.
Remediation.
Patch promptly. And maybe, after patching, it wouldn't hurt to verify the integrity of that component just to be sure.
Good practice. Then there's CVE 2025-53140. This is in the Windows Kernel Transaction Manager.
And it's another use-after-free. Seems to be the flavor of the month for EOP.
Definitely a pattern impact here.
Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation. Potential to compromise system integrity by running arbitrary code with those elevated privileges. Given it's in the kernel transaction manager, patching this one immediately is crucial. Apply the official fix.
Okay. Now, we talked about race conditions for RCE. Are we seeing them for EOP as well?
We are. Look at CVE 2025-53135. That's a race condition vulnerability, this time in the Windows DirectX graphics kernel.
So improper synchronization again, but leading to privilege escalation.
Exactly. An authorized attacker, locally, exploits that timing flaw during concurrent operations in DirectX to elevate their privileges, gaining greater access to system resources.
And there's another race condition, CVE 2025-53134, back to the Winsock Ancillary function driver.
Yep, that driver again. Another race condition allowing local privilege elevation, by exploiting improper synchronization. Seems like that driver needs a thorough review internally at Microsoft, maybe.
You think so. Patching is essential for both of these race conditions, obviously.
Absolutely. Deploy the patches across all affected systems.
Now, staying with graphics, but moving slightly, CVE 2025-53132. This is a race condition in Win32K GRFX. But wait, this one says over a network.
That's right. This one is particularly interesting and concerning. It's a race condition, yes, but it allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over a network.
How does that work for a race condition?
It relates to improper synchronization when concurrent graphics operations involving shared resources are initiated, potentially triggered remotely by an authorized user. It's less common to see network exploitable EOPs via race conditions, which makes this one stand out.
So the potential for unauthorized access or system control is network-based here.
Potentially, yes, which significantly increases its risk profile compared to a purely local EOP. Applying the latest security update for this is vital for protection against this network vector.
Definitely one to flag. Okay, also on the graphics front, CVE 2025-50161. This is in the Win32K component again.
This one's a heap-based buffer overflow. Back to memory corruption. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally, likely enabling arbitrary code execution with those higher permissions. It's a flaw in memory handling within the graphics subsystem. Apply the official fix.
Got it. What about printing? CVE 2025-53133. Use after free in Windows print workflow users SVC.
Right. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation. Leads to potential unauthorized actions with higher privileges due to a memory management flaw in that service. Make sure that service is patched and no longer vulnerable.
Okay. Now something different. CVE 2025-50173. Weak authentication in the Windows installer.
Yeah, this isn't a memory corruption bug. It was a flaw in how the Windows installer checks authentication. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally.
How could that lead to code execution?
If you can trick the installer service, running with high privileges, into doing something it shouldn't because the authentication check was weak, you might be able to get it to install or run malicious code as that high privilege service. Compromises system integrity.
So remediation is patching, but also more.
Yes. Yeah. Deploy the updates, absolutely. But also, this is a good reminder to review and enforce strict access controls around who can interact with the Windows installer service. Defense in depth.
Makes sense. Next, CVE 2025-50170. Windows Cloud Files mini filter driver. Improper handling of insufficient permissions.
Right. Another logic saw, not memory corruption. Basically, the driver isn't correctly handling situations where an operation should be denied due to lack of permissions.
So an attacker can bypass permission checks?
Potentially, yes. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally, possibly executing code with those elevated rights. Prompt application of the official fix is needed here.
Okay. And CVE 2025-50168. Win32K again, this time ICMP component. And it's type confusion.
Yes. Similar to the RCE type confusion issues, but here it leads to local privilege elevation. An authorized attacker exploits the improper handling of resource types to gain unauthorized access to sister resources, effectively elevating their privileges. Requires local access, but still needs patching.
Right. Now Hyper-V is back on the list for EOP. CVE 2025-50167. A race condition.
Correct. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation within the Hyper-V environment, exploits improper synchronization during concurrent operations. Could lead to unauthorized access or control within Hyper-V, critical for virtual environments.
And another Hyper-V one, CVE 2025-53155. This is a heap-based buffer overflow.
Yes. Another memory management flaw in Hyper-V allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. And again, the major concern here is the potential for unauthorized access and control over the host system, that VM escape scenario.
2 significant Hyper-V EOPs this month, on top of the RCE.
It's a worrying trend for virtualization security. The remediation is clear. Apply the security updates via standard patching. But again, strongly recommend reviewing and hardening those Hyper-V configs and keeping a very close eye on monitoring for any suspicious activity in those environments.
Definitely. Okay, Desktop Windows Manager again with CVE 2025-50153. Another use after free.
Yep. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation, potential system integrity compromise, patch promptly. Seems DWM has had a few issues lately.
And the Windows kernel itself again, CVE 2025-49761. Another use after free.
Yes. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation by executing specially crafted code. Exploits a memory management flaw in the kernel. Absolutely crucial to apply this kernel update promptly.
Okay. Graphics component again. CVE 2025-49743. Race condition.
Correct. Microsoft Graphics Component. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation via exploiting improper synchronization during concurrent operations using shared resources. Could lead to further exploitation. Patching is critical.
Now this one sounds interesting. CVE 2025-53789. Windows State Repository API server file. Missing authentication for a critical function.
Yeah, that sounds bad on the face. A critical function just doesn't check who's calling it.
Seems like it. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. Enables higher level permissions, potential system compromise.
Wow. Okay, so definitely patch this one. And this feels like another case where you'd want to go beyond just patching. Regularly review and monitor access control specifically for this state repository service. Make sure it's locked down properly now.
Good advice. Okay, network-based EOP again. CVE 2025-53778. Windows NTLM, improper authentication.
Right. NTLM is a legacy authentication protocol, but still widely used. This vulnerability allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over a network by exploiting flaws in those NTLM authentication mechanisms.
So someone with maybe just basic user credentials could potentially leverage this to gain higher access across the network?
That's the risk. Especially dangerous if they've already compromised one account. Remediation involves deploying the latest NTLM patches for sure. But also, strongly recommend regular audits of your NTLM configurations. Are you allowing legacy protocols where you don't need to? And actively monitoring authentication logs for weird NTLM activity.
Proactive defense needed there. Okay, Windows push notifications seems to be having a bad month too. CVE 2025-53726, 53725, 53724, multiple type confusion vulnerabilities.
3 of them, yes. All allowing an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally due to improper handling of resource access within the push notification system.
A whole access required for these.
Yes, local access, which again underscores the importance of strong basic access control. Only authorized users should be on these systems in the first place. But you still need to apply the updates promptly to close these specific elevation paths.
Right. Hyper-V again. CVE 2025-53723, a numeric truncation error. What's that?
It's a type of data handling error. Imagine you have a calculation that results in a large number, but you try to store it in a space only big enough for a smaller number. The system might just truncate or chop off the higher order bits to make it fit.
Which could lead to unexpected results in calculations.
Exactly. And if that calculation is related to security checks or resource allocation, it can lead to vulnerabilities. In this case, it allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally within the Hyper-V environment. Potential for unauthorized access or control. Apply the latest Hyper-V updates.
Okay. And CVE 2025-53721, Windows Connected Devices Platform Service, use after free.
Yes. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation, potential for unauthorized access to sensitive data or system control via this service. Apply to security update.
Oh, yeah, the Winsock driver one last time. CVE 2025-53718. We mentioned this use after free earlier with the others.
That's right. Just reiterating, it was part of that cluster. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation due to a memory management flaw. Apply the updates via Windows Update or the catalog.
Got it. We're almost through the EOPs. CVE 2025-50159. Remote Access Point-to-Point Protocol, PPP, EAP, TLS. Use after free.
Correct. Allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally via the Secure Remote Access Protocol component. Potential for unauthorized actions with elevated privileges. Apply the update and keep checking for updates if you rely heavily on PPP, EAP, TLS.
And finally, one more for push notifications. CVE 2025-50155. Type confusion again.
Yes. Authorized attacker, local privilege elevation, enables higher level permissions. Apply the patch through standard processes.
Phew. That is an overwhelming number of elevation of privilege vulnerabilities. It really drives home how critical it is to stop attackers from moving laterally or vertically once they get that initial foothold.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Patching these is just as important as patching the initial RCEs.
Okay.
It's about limiting the blast radius if or when an initial compromise occurs. Defense in depth, again.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears to information disclosure vulnerabilities, ID.
Okay, so these don't let attackers run code or directly elevate privileges usually, but they're still important.
Why? What's the risk?
Information disclosure bugs leak sensitive data that attackers shouldn't see. This could be memory contents, system configuration details, usernames, file structures, information that attackers can then use to plan more effective attacks later.
So they're reconnaissance tools for the attacker.
Exactly. They can be crucial precursors to larger attacks. Finding out system specifics or valid usernames can make subsequent RCE or EOP attempts Much easier and more likely to succeed.
Makes sense. So what do we have this month for ID? CVE 2025-53156, Windows Storage Port Driver.
This one allows an authorized attacker to disclose information locally. It's due to improper handling of sensitive data within that storage driver, requires local access, but still risks data confidentiality. Patching promptly is the way to go.
Okay. Then CVE 2025-50166, Windows Distributed Transaction Coordinator MSDTC, and integer overflow vulnerability.
Right. We discussed integer overflows earlier, math operations creating values too big for the allocated space, causing unexpected behavior.
And here it leads to information disclosure.
This one's particularly concerning because it allows an authorized attacker to disclose sensitive information over a network. They could potentially send specially crafted requests to the DTC service, trigger the overflow, and cause it to leak information it shouldn't.
Information related to distributed transactions, that could be sensitive business data.
Potentially, yes. Or system information related to the transaction participants. For any system using DTC, applying this update quickly is really crucial to prevent that kind of network-based data leakage.
Agreed. Next up, CVE 2025-50158, Windows NTFS, a TOC 2 race condition.
Towards it to you. Time of check, time of use. It's a specific type of race condition.
Explain that one.
Imagine our program does two steps. First, it checks if an action is allowed. CG, does the current user have permission to read this file? Second, based on that check being successful, it uses the resource, e.g., okay, open the file for reading.
Seems logical. What's the problem?
The problem is the tiny gap in time between the check and the use. If an attacker can change the situation during that gap, maybe swap the file being checked for a different one or change permissions, they might trick the program into performing the use step on something it shouldn't have access to.
Exploiting that brief moment of vulnerability.
Exactly. In this NTFS case, it could allow an unauthorized attacker to disclose sensitive information locally by manipulating the timing of file access operations, potentially exposing data they shouldn't see. Applying the latest NTFS security update is needed to fix this timing flaw.
Got it. And one more ID, CVE 2025-53136, in the NTOS kernel itself.
Yes. This allows an authorized attacker to disclose sensitive information locally due to improper handling of information within the kernel. Patching promptly is advised to protect sensitive kernel-level data.
Okay, that covers information disclosure. Let's move to denial of service DOS vulnerabilities.
Right. DOS, these are all about disrupting availability.
They don't usually grant access or steal data, but they can definitely hurt business operations, right?
Absolutely. Preventing legitimate users from accessing services, crashing systems, that can be incredibly costly and damaging, even without a data breach. Availability is a core part of the CIA triad. After all, confidentiality, integrity, availability.
True. So what DOS issues are we seeing? CVE 2025-50172 in the DirectX graphics kernel.
This one exploits resource allocation without limits or throttling. Essentially, DirectX isn't properly capping how many resources certain operations can consume.
So an attacker can just ask for too much.
Pretty much. An authorized attacker can cause a denial of service over a network by sending requests that just overwhelm the graphics resources, potentially crashing the graphics subsystem or the whole machine. Applying the official fixes needed to prevent these kinds of service disruptions.
Okay, Hyper-V again. CVE 2025-49751, a missing synchronization vulnerability.
That's like another race condition variant, related to improper coordination of concurrent operations.
Yeah.
This allows an authorized attacker to cause a denial of service over an adjacent network.
Adjacent network. So maybe affecting other VMs on the same host or network segment?
That's the likely scenario, yes, affecting VM availability. Crucial again for Hyper-V admins to ensure all relevant patches are applied promptly.
Then CVE 2025-53722, Windows Remote Desktop Services, uncontrolled resource consumption.
Similar to the DirectX one, but affecting RDS. This one allows an unauthorized attacker notice, unauthorized again.
Raise flag.
Right, allows them to cause a denial of service over the network just by sending specially crafted requests that swamp the RDS resources. Makes the service unavailable for legitimate users trying to connect. Strongly advise applying this update to prevent RDS outages.
Definitely need RDS to be stable. Lastly, for DOS, CVE 2025-53716, Local Security Authority Subsystem Service, LSAS, a null pointer dereference.
Yes, we discussed null pointer dereferences causing crashes. Here, it allows an authorized attacker to cause a denial of service over a network by triggering this flaw in LSAS.
Taking down LSAS, that sounds really bad. Isn't that critical for logins and security?
It is. LSAS handles authentication, security policies, If it crashes or becomes unavailable, it can severely impact users logging on, accessing resources, basically crippling critical security functions. The underlying cause is LSAS failing to properly handle certain malicious requests. Prompt deployment of LSAS security updates is key.
Absolutely. Okay, one final category for Windows this month: spoofing.
Spoofing. This is all about impersonation.
Right, an attacker pretending to be someone or something they're not.
Exactly. Masquerading as another user, a trusted website, a legitimate system, whatever helps them gain unauthorized access or trick people into giving up information or performing actions, often used in phishing or social engineering.
Identity and trust are fundamental, and spoofing undermines that. What do we have here?
Just one listed explicitly as spoofing this month. CVE 2025-50154 in Microsoft Windows File Explorer.
File Explorer, how can that be used for spoofing?
The description mentions exposure of sensitive information to an unauthorized actor. It seems this information leak, due to improper handling of sensitive data within Explorer, can then be leveraged by an unauthorized attacker to perform spoofing over a network.
Interesting link. Maybe leaking information that helps them craft a convincing fake login prompt or impersonate a network resource.
That's plausible. The details aren't fully specified, but the outcome is potential network spoofing. Applying the latest security updates for File Explorer is the recommendation to protect against this.
Okay, so that wraps up the extensive list of Windows CVEs for this Patch Tuesday. Quite a haul.
A very significant list covering almost every major vulnerability category.
But we're not quite done. We also need to cover the browser side, specifically Microsoft Edge.
Right. Can't forget the browser. It's often the front line, the main interface with the web and potential threats.
And Edge, being based on Chromium, its security updates are tied to that project, aren't they?
Largely, yes. Microsoft contributes to Chromium, but Edge also inherits the security fixes developed for the core Chromium engine that powers Google Chrome and other browsers. When Chromium patches vulnerabilities, those fixes typically make their way into Edge updates shortly after.
And what's the typical risk with these browser vulnerabilities?
The most common and serious risk is arbitrary code execution, but specifically in the context of the logged-in user. If you browse to a malicious website or open a malicious file in the browser, an exploit could allow the attacker to run their code within the browser's sandboxed process.
Which could still lead to bad things, right? Stealing cookies, session data, maybe finding ways to escape the sandbox.
Exactly. They could potentially steal credentials stored in the browser, hijack your online sessions, redirect you to phishing sites, or potentially chain the browser exploit with an OS vulnerability like one of those EOPs we just discussed to gain deeper system access. Browser security is paramount.
Okay, so this month's Edge update includes fixes for several Chromium RCEs. Can you give us a sense of the types of flaws being fixed?
Sure. Looking at the list, we see things like CVE 2025-8583 in permissions, described as inappropriate implementation. CVE 2025-8582 in the DOM, involving insufficient validation of untrusted input, both leading to potential code execution.
Okay, implementation flaws, input validation. Common theme.
Right. Then CVE 2025-8581 and CVE 2025-8576 are both related to extensions, one, inappropriate implementation, the other, a use after free. Extensions are a frequent target.
Yeah, they often have higher privileges within the browser.
They can. Then we have CVE 2025-8580 in file systems, CVE 2025-8579 in a feature called Gemini Live, presumably related to AI integration, and CVE 2025-8577 in a picture all flagged as inappropriate implementation leading to potential code execution.
And CVE 2025-8578 is a use after free, this time in the cast component.
Correct. So it's a mix implementation, logic errors, input validation failures, memory corruption issues like use after free, ultimately potentially allowing an attacker to execute arbitrary code within the user's browser context if they visit a malicious page or interact with malicious content.
So for all of these Edge Chromium vulnerabilities, the remediation guidance is pretty consistent.
Absolutely consistent and critical. Update Microsoft Edge to the latest version, period. That version will bundle the necessary fixes inherited from the Chromium project. System administrators must ensure Edge is kept up to date across their fleet.
And if people want the nitty-gritty details on these specific Chromium bugs,
the best place to look is usually the official Google Chrome Releases blog or the Chromium security pages. They often provide more technical detail on the underlying Chromium CVEs that get pulled into Edge. It gives you that deeper context.
Good tip. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground here, 60 CVEs across Windows and Edge. Let's try to boil this down. What are the absolute key takeaways? What's the action plan?
Right. Let's synthesize. First, the severity. This August report clearly shows a high volume of vulnerabilities, with a really strong worrying emphasis on remote code execution and elevation of privilege flaws.
The ones that lead to direct system control or give attackers the keys to the kingdom once they're inside.
Precisely. Their potential for unauthorized control, data theft, or just wrecking system integrity makes them the top priorities. We saw numerous examples across core Windows components, Hyper-V, MSMQ, graphics, networking drivers. It's widespread.
So the immediate call to action is pretty obvious.
Blindingly obvious, really. Apply the latest security updates as soon as you possibly can, following your standard testing and deployment procedures, of course. Mitigating the risks from all these identified CVEs has to be top priority in your patching schedule this month.
Test, then deploy. Boot it with urgency.
Exactly. And stepping back from just this month, this whole list is another stark reminder, isn't it? Regular, well-managed patch management isn't just a chore. It is absolutely fundamental to maintaining any kind of robust security posture. It's an ongoing process, not a one-off task.
Continuous vigilance. Okay, now for the specifics. People want KB numbers, which are the core Windows updates that cover a lot of this ground.
Okay, for broad coverage across many of the critical Windows CVEs, we discussed the RCEs, the EOPs, the others, you really want to prioritize deploying these three key knowledge base articles: KB 5064010, KB 5063878, and KB 5063875.
Got it. KB 50640 KB 5063875. Those are the big ones for widespread coverage.
Those are your main targets, yes. They should address a significant chunk of the vulnerabilities we've detailed today.
Are there others to be aware of for more specific scenarios?
Yes, definitely. While those three are broad, depending on your specific OS versions and install components, you should also check the applicability of these KBs. KB 5063889, KB 5063709, KB 5062561, KB 5062553, and KB 5062552.
Okay, a secondary list to check against specific systems.
Right. Always verify which updates apply specifically to your environment using Windows Update, WSUS, Configuration Manager, Intune, whatever you use for patch management. Don't just assume the top three cover everything for every machine.
Good point. Due diligence is required. And for Microsoft Edge?
Simple and clear. Update to the latest version available. And make sure to check the release note dated July 8th, 2025, 07/08/2025, that Microsoft should have published alongside the Edge update, as that will reference the specific Chromium fixes included.
Perfect. Okay, so that's the immediate action plan. Patch Windows, patch Edge. Prioritize those key KBs.
That's the core message. It's clear from this deep dive that the sheer volume and criticality of vulnerabilities isn't slowing down. Month after month, we see these significant drops.
Yeah, it really does feel relentless, doesn't it? Which kind of brings us to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to mull over beyond just the mechanics of patching this month's flaws.
Yeah.
Well, as we keep confronting this constant, predictable flow of critical vulnerabilities, this monthly deluge, how do organizations need to evolve? How do we get better at this? Not just reacting to patches, but thinking more proactively. How can we evolve our incident response plans, our defenses, to anticipate and defend against the underlying attack vectors these CVEs keep exposing, rather than just playing whack-a-mole with the specific vulnerabilities each month?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Moving from purely reactive patching to more proactive, resilient defense based on understanding the attacker's techniques that these vulnerabilities enable. It's a huge challenge.
It is, but maybe one worth thinking about seriously as you tackle this latest batch of updates. Something to consider for your own environment.
A necessary consideration, I think.
All right, that wraps up our deep dive for this Patch Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Stay informed, stay patched, and stay secure out there.